They put on a screen like gay porn, and as you watch the gay porn, they would shock your balls. And he said he had a vision of me being raped as a kid.
I'm gonna go to conversion therapy and I'm gonna change myself.
That's why you're gay. You need a father figure. Had ever had sex with demons?
So what was the first day on conversion camp?
Have to be naked in front of everyone. Why are you doing this to me, God? And he gave the name of the person who raped me. Blocked my mom, blocked my sister, because they would not stop telling me things. Then he said, you're free from homosexuality. He told me to my face, you're free.
Do you still hate yourself? Welcome guys, I'm not alone here today, I'm with my friend Luke.
Hi.
Luke is actually from Brazil and he went to conversion therapy. For how long you've been in conversion therapy?
Been on and off for a few weeks. It wasn't just one time, it was several different occasions.
And today, actually, Luke gonna share his story, how did he come out, and what it's like to be in a conversion therapy. So if you know someone, if someone needs help to go through this, and someone needs to see different people and experiences, please send them this video. Don't forget to smash the like button and leave your comments if you ever went through this or you know people who went through conversion therapy. Can you please tell me in a couple words, what was your realization that when you were gay? When did you realize, and how was your environment around you? Like, did you got scared? Was it not accepted? Was there jokes about it?
I realized I was gay by the age of, I think, 10. I felt attraction for men, but at first I thought I just wanted to be like other men, like other boys of my age. Eventually I realized, oh, I don't want to be like them. I want to be with them. And that's when it happened.
Did you know that you had like homophobic family or no?
Yeah, I knew. It was like, I was homophobic too, so I thought that's something I could fix. I wanted to fix it by the age of 18, because that's when you have to join the military, and so I didn't want to be gay in the military.
And in Brazil, every single man has to join the military?
Yeah, you have to show up for what I call an inspection, where you pretty much get to be naked in front of, or you have to be naked in front of everyone. You don't have to serve. That part is pretty much voluntary, but you have to be naked, and that's what frightened me the most since I was a kid.
I honestly went through something like this because we had the checkups and you have to be naked and they like see and measure you and all this stuff.
Yep.
So it's kind of weird. When you realized you were gay and you had first thoughts that you are homophobic or you don't like it, right? You want to fix it. What was your thinking? Like, why did you think like this? Was it your family? Was it TV? Like, did you grow up in a religious family? Why you thought that it's bad?
It was mostly because of my religion. By the age of 15, I had a deep Christian conviction of faith. It wasn't just dependent on my family. I thought that it was sinful. I thought it was wrong. So there was no one who could convince me otherwise back in the day. Even if my parents were supportive, I think I would still have like a very bad time. I think it's mostly in the Bible. So the Bible doesn't say anything clearly about being homosexual or gay. There are some passages that if you read it, you'll be like, okay, this is probably talking about homosexual behavior. And there's not a single passage in the Bible that speaks well about homosexual couples. There's no mention at all about any homosexual activity being seen as a good thing. So I guess that gets ingrained into your brain and in your memory. I think that's where it comes from.
How did you come out first to your family? And did they tell you to go to conversion therapy, or you actually, hey, I'm coming out, but it's okay. I'm gonna go to conversion therapy and I'm gonna change myself.
The idea came from me, but I think my mom was in agreement. I came out to my mom when I was around 15, and we decided that I should do therapy. Technically, therapy is not supposed to help you with this. It's not supposed to help you change. But I went to a Christian therapist, and she gave me some books, some resources, that's what they call it, to help you go through changing your desires. That type of therapy it's not as dramatic as in the past, where people would get shot in their testicles while watching homosexual activities. Lobotomy, it was pretty bad, but nowadays it's more subtle, but it's still very, very dangerous, because you're trying to change something that you cannot force, you cannot change. And I told my mom first, but I was in agreement with her, and the therapy sessions just continue for a few years.
Wow. I didn't know that you can get shot in your balls and it's gonna stop you from being homosexual.
That's what they try.
Yeah, that's kind of stupid, but okay. So when you decided, did you guys like Google, there's like camps, is there allowed, like can you tell me your probably Not the first day yet, but like your preparation. What was your mental state?
I think I was in a lot of shame. It was really hard talking to someone else about this. So I started talking to some leaders in church, some pastors. At first, they're very understanding. They're like, oh, okay. They wanted to talk more about it. But at the end of the day, they're not going to accept you, at least not back in the day. They're going to slowly but surely, they're going to try to help you in the process of you suppressing your feelings. That's the less harmful way of them doing this, is just helping you suppress your feelings.
So, what was the first day on conversion camp? What was the building? Who were the people? How many? Who were your teachers? How does it look?
I went to this place for 2 weeks. They don't call it conversion therapy. They call it like a place for healing of your soul and your spirit and everything else. So everyone who has any sort of emotional trouble inside of them, they can go there to be treated, to be healed. Yeah. And as soon as I got there, it was in a farm, and I noticed that there were a lot of gays in there. Like, there were a ton of gays. This place wasn't specifically advertised for gays, but there were a ton of gays there, and I felt really uncomfortable.
Were they girls too?
Oh, they're girls too. Yeah, lots of gays, and we would listen to lots of sermons all day, do some activities. What was most, I think, interesting is that they would emphasize a lot that being gay is because you didn't have a father figure in your life. They would emphasize that all the time. So anything you tell them, they would say, oh, this is why you're gay. It's because your dad did this when you were young. That's why you're gay. You need a father figure. That's what you're looking in another man. And they try to force that idea into your head. But it's very subtle.
How many were there when you just got there? And what was your rooms like? Were they like bunk beds? How many restrooms you had?
There were several like rooms, and I think there were 3 buildings with 3 floors each. We had to share like a big bathroom, and the rooms we had to sleep, I think, 4 people. I think in my room they had 2 people that went there to be treated, and 2 pastors, as far as I can remember.
So you're actually in a room with a pastor.
2 pastors, yeah, 2 pastors.
Wow, that's getting gayer and gayer. That's getting gayer. Okay, just before we go on a serious note, very quick, were you jerking off on the guys by this stage?
Yes, I was.
Were you jerking off on your camp?
I did not jerk off in the camp, no.
So there's 2 pastors and 2 people, you and another guy, right? What are the guys were telling there? Is everyone came with the same thought like you, or someone just came because they were forced? Like, again, I'm talking about the very, very first camp. You know, what the guys were talking about.
Most guys that were there, they wanted to be healed. I don't think you can like physically force someone or even coerce someone that much nowadays. But it's an idea that comes from within. So it's so hard for that person to fight against that. It's like it's like what they call the syndrome of the battered wife, when a wife is manipulated by a husband and is in a toxic relationship, and she cannot escape from that because it's in her mind. So it's not like the guy is forcing her, so to speak, to be in there. And it's the same thing with gays. When you grow up thinking that thing is sinful, you do everything you can to get that outside of you. It's like a disease. You have to get rid of that. It's so strong.
How many people would you say? Hundreds of people were there during this two weeks, or how many?
I would say that total there was like more than 100 people, and some people lived there. It was also a missionary camp. So missionaries, they go out and preach the gospel, and that was a missionary camp. A lot of people had houses in this farm.
So during your first 2 weeks conversion therapy, what was the result?
I think I made some friends. I don't talk to them anymore because it's been so many years. I'd say like 10 years ago. Yeah, it was a long time ago. The result was nothing, to be honest. I think the only thing...
Damn!
Yeah. I think one of the things that was good in there is that they talked to me about my profession. At the time I was in law school in Brazil. They said, I don't see you as a lawyer, and I already didn't see myself as a lawyer, so I came back home full of doubts about my profession. But as far as the whole father figure, I think it kind of pushed me to get closer to my dad, but it doesn't change at all. That's the thing. Some of the things that they tell you are actually good, I think, but the whole premise of healing you from being gay, it has no effect. It's like zero effect.
So, how many years after your first conversion therapy to your second conversion therapy passed by?
About 2 years later,
During these 2 years after you came back, did you were you still masturbating on a man? How did it work after conversion therapy? Because you said it didn't help a
I
lot.
think I was just not trying to think too much about it. I would, every time I felt tempted to sin, to jerk off, to watch porn that had men in there, I would just do it and then ask God for forgiveness. And every time, I would just stay away from it from like a week or two and then do it again. Ask God for forgiveness again. Forgive me, God, every time.
For your next therapy, did you had any sexual experiments or kiss with the guy?
I did. So in the middle of all
Damn!
that, yeah. So in the meanwhile, I had been working with the pastor very closely. I would tell him everything, all my desires, everything. The one thing he told me is that you have to try not to go out with a guy, because if you do, it's going to be much harder to do it. That's precisely what happened in between those two experiences. I felt like I had been deceived by God. I was like, I liked it so much. We just hung out for a while. We just held hands and just kissed. Pretty much that's all we did. But I felt like this is what I was meant to do in my life. I was meant for this. It felt so good just to be in the presence of another guy, like, and we're both gays, that I felt like, God, why did you do this? This is so cruel. I felt like really, really deceived and sad. Why are you doing this to me, God?
And did you guys end up dating or no?
We dated on the internet for like a week, but I couldn't. I was having panic attacks every night. I couldn't sleep. I felt so isolated from everything, and I thought God was isolating himself from me. I couldn't stand it. Like, my emotions were not strong enough to handle all that pressure, so it didn't work.
So before you went to your second conversion therapy, how did it happen? Who pushed you, or what happened again?
At this point, I felt like I was kind of pushed. I had a lot of pressure from my mom. She kept saying, if this is not working because you don't want this to work. And at this point, I didn't want anything. I didn't want that to work anyway. I was just like, I'm just going to keep asking God for forgiveness every time I fall into sin. So this pastor I had been working with, he knew another pastor. And he was known for being like this spiritual guy who was able to heal people from emotional trauma and everything. So he came to my city, this other pastor, and we prayed in a room. And he said he had a vision of me being, I don't know if I can say that, being raped as a kid. Mm-hmm. He said he had a vision, and he gave the name of the person who raped me. And I have no idea who that name belongs to. But he gave me a name and said I was raped as a baby. And that's why I turned out to be gay. Then he asked, "Oh, do you have the desire to bottom?" Like, yeah, and he said, "Yeah, that's why, because you were raped as a kid." I mean, it sounds funny now, but it was like, that's very weird.
I mean, it's funny now after 10 years,
Yeah.
but when they fuck with your head, when you're like 19 or 18 and they fuck with your head all these 18 years, it's pretty tough. Like, I can imagine, because I'm from Ukraine, very, like, not super accepting place, even though people think it's changed. I don't think it is. But it never went with me through religion, because I went to church like 3 times in life, So I never know what religion is, pretty much. You're going back to your second conversion therapy. What happens there? How many people are there? If you can just give more detailed, if you remember, more detailed like technical things. How many times you got food, how many guys there, are they a little bit older, was there age difference, or how many beds, like all small like details, what it looks like inside. Was it a farm again?
This second conversion therapy was a little different. I worked closely with this pastor who told me that I had been raped. Mm-hmm. And he wanted me to tell my story to the rest of my family. So he kind of forced me to tell my sister and
His vision.
Yeah, his vision and what I had been going through. After that, he made me a bunch of questions, very weird questions, like all the things I had done with guys. He asked me if I had ever had sex with demons, and I'm like, what does that even mean? How do you? But he made me.
Maybe he meant demon twinks.
I guess that's what he meant. I don't know. But then he kind of like wanted me to go back to his home, and he lived like about 6 hours away in a different state. He wanted me to go and spend a week with his family. So I did. Like, I was not in the mood for that, but I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go at this point. So I traveled to this state that I've never been before. It was very uncomfortable because I was in a stranger's place. I didn't know his family. I barely knew him. I stayed at his house for about a week, and what we did there, it wasn't very exciting. There's not much to say. Just wake up, and he made me read some passages in the Bible. I think it was Galatians 5 every morning that talks about being free in Christ and all that stuff. Talk about it, and I would follow him throughout the day while he helped other people. That's pretty much what we did. And on the sixth day there, we prayed again about being delivered from homosexuality and everything, and he opened the Bible in a passage that talked about homosexual. And then he saw that as a sign. Then he said, "You're free from homosexuality." He told me to my face, "You're free from homosexuality." I'm like, "What?" But I don't feel
I still want you, daddy. You know?
right. I don't feel any different. And he's like, "No, that's normal. You're gonna feel different in a few days." So then I said, "Well, if I'm free, I might just well go home now." So I went back home, and he called me about 2 weeks later and asked, "Well, how's it going? Do you feel any different?" I'm like, "Nope." And he sounded really disappointed. Like he really believed that I had been set free from homosexuality. And he kept saying back there that I wasn't safe, that there were demons trying to force me into being gay and all that stuff. And after that I was free, but I didn't feel any different, so it didn't make any difference.
How many conversion therapies you went total?
I count a few when I think about conversion therapy. I don't include just that first experience. I also think of every time I go to a place to pray with someone. Like among Christians, they have like people who are known to be very spiritual. So you go talk to them, usually give them money or something, and then they pray with you for they like the number 7. So you pray with them 7 weeks. So you go there every time for 7 weeks, and then they get an oil that has a little scent, and they think that oil is it's kind of magical. So they put the oil on your head like this, and they go like this on your head, and then they pray the demons away. And sometimes it's really suffocating. It's like they're screaming at you, like at the demons inside of you. Those are some of more of the experience that I had, but I didn't have any more of those like actual camps where you go there and you cannot leave. Besides the first one, no.
I just want to come back just one more time to the first one camp, because it's really interesting for me what it's like. You said it was on a farm, there was mostly gays. How were gays interacting with each other? Were there fights, or were there like love stories?
I don't remember seeing any of that. I know I've heard a lot of stories of that exact thing, love stories. Of people who go there and they become missionaries. And usually they become missionaries because they want to run away from their homosexual lifestyle. So they think that by being sheltered in that bubble, they're not going to be tempted. But then they meet people just like them in there, and so they fall in love, and there's this huge scandals that happen all the time. But then the leadership, they just brush it off, try to pretend like it didn't happen. But that's very common.
When did you realize after second therapy, because when you were going to the second therapy, you were already skeptical, because you thought that God just betrayed you. When did you realize after second therapy that, okay, it's okay, I'm gay, I'm not going to change, and I'm not going to pray anymore?
It was when I moved to the U.S. I went to a Christian school. It's called Liberty University, Virginia. It's in a very conservative state, very conservative city. Everything around me was Christianity and was this Christian bubble. And it was in this place that I met this friend in church. After we went to a spiritual camp together. He was gay too, and he kept telling me things like, "Oh, I think God has a wife for me, but if I fall in love with a guy, God will forgive me or something." And he kept putting those ideas into my head. Started researching about it. Started reading books, and I had read some books in the past, but I wasn't open to that. Like books from gay Christians. That's something that's even possible, but there's some gay Christians that accept themselves. And after reading those books, I went through a period of three months where I talked to a bunch of people. I was really clear about my intentions. Hey, I think that maybe God is okay with it, and maybe God knows how hard it is. He's just gonna let it slide. That's where the idea started. It was a very painful period of my life because I felt the pressure. The pressure inside of me was very strong because on one hand, if at the end of this period I realized that God really wanted me to be straight, it would be painful because now I had already the expectation that maybe God would be okay. On the other hand, if God told me that it's okay to be gay, if I felt that from God, then it would be very painful to explain to my family and then face society. I think, and that happened about 6 years ago.
Honestly, like it's like my first time, I did different interviews, but I just can like, like people, I feel like sometimes people have connection and I can just feel like pain when you speak because it is painful, like we all go through different types of homophobia sometimes, like majority of the people. Not everyone is super accepted from the beginning, and it was like I feel like how extreme it is. When did you move out of this place, and when did you tell your parents? What happened after you told your parents that you're gay and you're not gonna change? How was it?
I moved out of Virginia in 2020, and that's pretty much around the time that I came out. The way I told my family was through a YouTube video that I made in Portuguese, where I explained my entire journey. I spoke for an hour, so it was a long journey, and that's when they all learned about it. So I was here in the States, and they were all in Brazil. So I got messages all day. I had to block some of them. I blocked my mom, blocked my sister, because they would not stop telling me things. So
What things? Like, can you give just one example for mom?
yeah, from mom, she was in pain. It was hard for her too, because she thought that I was going to hell. That is the worst thing a mom can think about their child, like that their child is going to hell. And she was like, "You're going to hell, like I cannot sleep, I cannot drink." And everyone was against me because everyone loves my mom. Everyone, like she's a very good person. Aside from those things,
Yeah, it's
like yeah, she's better.
sometimes questionable, yeah.
Yeah. So everyone turned against me because of what I did to my mom, because of the reaction I caused her. And it's not very common to see her in that state. So that's why everyone was freaking out. As for my dad, he messaged me like 2 weeks later. And he just sent me like a huge text saying that. And then, I mean, my parents are divorced. And every time a problem comes up, he talks about the divorce and how I should have stayed with him. Because I went to move with my mom when they got divorced. And he was like, "You should have stayed with me because I could have helped you. If you had come to me, I could have helped you." And then, all those things. And then he didn't talk to me for a long time. He didn't say don't talk to me, but he said that I made my choice and now he's making his. And so I thought, oh,
What was his choice?
I guess he didn't want me to be in contact with the family. Like he blocked me from the family group. So I got the idea. I think I don't know. He didn't tell me to my face, "Don't talk to me ever again." But it was kind of implied, like we're not talking anymore. That's your punishment for being gay.
How many years it took them to accept you if they did?
My mom, I think it took her about 2 years because it was during the pandemic. So I couldn't leave the U.S. and they couldn't come here. It was on Christmas of 2021 that she was finally able to come to the U.S. to visit me. We were like in good terms at that point, but we hadn't really talked about it, about everything that had happened. And she pulled me aside and then she started crying and then she apologized for not having my back all those years. It was very emotional because I would never thought that she would change her mind about this. It felt like my mom is going to tolerate me, or it's just going to be something we're not going to talk about ever again. But it's not like she's ever going to say, "Hey, that's who you are." She did. She came around, and once in a while we talk about it. Like, we don't really talk about my gay life at all. But one time she told me that she was talking to a client, and her client said, "Oh, my son is gay." And then she said, "Oh, my son is homosexual too." Like, she said, "Oh, homosexual." And they both bonded on the fact that their sons are gay, and that's okay. I'm like, great. It felt like a little cringe, but I was like, that's a little weird, but that's cool. The cutest thing was my grandma. From the moment that she learned that I was gay, she sent me a message saying, "That's who God made you, and that's who you are, and that's okay." I'm like, wow. Because everyone says that the older generations they're more like closed-minded, but no, my grandma was the first one to come out and say, "Hey, that's fine. I love you the same. That's who God made you, and that's okay."
Quick question about grandma. When they were sending you to like conversion therapy. Was she like around for this, or she did not care, or she was just living far away?
She lived in another state. She wasn't around, so she didn't know about any of the conversion therapy or anything. We kept it very private, just me and my mom and my stepdad.
And what about your dad? Did he come around too, or no?
Sorta, we're in the process. I think my dad, there were some major deceptions in his life because he's a lawyer. He expected me to be a lawyer too, and I was trying to be a lawyer, but it came all at the same time. I figured out I don't want to try to be straight. I don't want to be a lawyer, at least not for now. And I don't want to be in his religion because he's Catholic and I was evangelical. So those are two they were within Christianity, both, but they have some major differences. So for him, it was a shock when I told him I was becoming an evangelical. Then it was a shock when I told him I was gay. Then it was a shock when I told him I wasn't going to law school. And, I mean, I graduated, but I don't want to practice at the moment. So it's still going to take a while for us to go back to the way it was. But we're still talking once in a while, yeah.
So you're huge in OnlyFans compared to a lot of people, and you've been doing it for a long time now, and you've been doing social media, even though TikTok keeps banning you, but you're coming back. You went from conversion therapy to becoming an OnlyFans superstar. How did the idea of OnlyFans came to you, and how did you process all of this? Do you think that because of the conversion therapy, you started doing OnlyFans?
I think it all helped. It's like when you push yourself too hard to one side, sometimes you just go all the way back to the other side. I think the change took place when I started TikTok in 2020, just for fun, because I was lonely. So I started TikTok, and then people started saying, hey, make an OnlyFans. I'm like, what is an OnlyFans? But then I didn't like the idea yet, because I was somewhat of a Christian. I still believe, okay, I can be gay, but I think I want to be like chill. Like, I don't want to sell pics or anything. Then this one time, this guy that I really like, he said he was going to do like a live stream on Chatterbait. Not sure if you know that website. Yeah. He said that if I wanted to go to join him, and because I wanted to be with him, I said, yeah, I'm down. So I went there, and we pretty much didn't do a lot, just pretty much kissed, but it was very awkward. And I just went back home, and then people started asking about OnlyFans. I'm like, you know what? I might just start selling some nudes here and there. I used to sell them on Snapchat, and then I started selling them on Twitter. Like, I had a private Twitter account, and eventually I just migrated to OnlyFans. And my thought was just like, I'm just gonna do it for 1 month or two just to have extra cash. And eventually I'm like, okay, I mean, it's been going on for 2 years. I don't know how long it's gonna go, but it put food on my table so far. So the only weird part was I had a lot of guilt. I felt like at one point I felt like, okay, being gay is one thing. Now doing porn is something else, you know. So because that's what I didn't just post like pics in underwear. I went full on and did everything on OnlyFans.
So I heard a lot of stories also about conversion therapy, and sometimes they can be shocking. And you mentioned in the beginning. So do they really shot people in their balls? Like, can you tell me a couple like practices that they do when it's extreme level?
That is a form of conversion therapy that it might still exist, but it's hidden nowadays. Like back in the days I mean the 50s and 60s, there were so many times of conversion therapy that were warranted by actual medical doctors. So one of them would be like, you just stand on a chair, they put some things on your testicles, they put on a screen like gay porn, and as you watch the gay porn, they would shock your balls to give you like a bad association between gay porn and being excited, aroused by it. Another one was lobotomy, like which is pretty much to take parts of your brain surgery, to remove parts of your brain that were thought to be associated with being gay. Now those practices are like, they're not available anymore, or if they are, they're like very hidden, very well hidden. What happens nowadays is mostly brainwashing. That's what they do nowadays. They convince you that it's sinful, and they convince you that you need to go through several spiritual experiences to overcome this.
Someone is in conversion therapy right now, or they want about to be sent. What's one advice? What to do?
The journey of accepting yourself is very painful. So don't judge. First thing, don't judge yourself. I'm not going to tell anyone, don't do this or don't do that. Just don't judge yourself, even if you decide to go. Maybe some people have to try they have to try and see it for themselves that it doesn't work. Because I can be telling people, a lot of people told me it doesn't work, but I tried. If you're going through this right now, don't judge yourself and just make sure you're safe, like physically safe, I mean, because some places you might not be physically safe. Whenever it is your time to come out, to accept yourself, it's going to be your time.
So you said that you really hated yourself for a long time, right? Do you still hate yourself? Like sometimes? Or you fully accepted yourself? You know, because it's a big thing in your brain. They constantly put it to you through a majority of your life.
I want to say no, but there might be some little details that I'm still working on. I still do therapy, not a conversion therapy this time, just to take care of my mental health in general. I think it's very important. And once in a while, we come up, like in therapy, we come up with some thoughts or beliefs that are still like ingrained in homophobic thoughts or beliefs. And I'm like, okay, I can work through that. But I don't think that overall I don't hate myself anymore. I think I fully accept who I am, where I am in life right now, and my decisions. If I make a bad decision, I even respect that because I believe there's nothing that I could have done better in life. I believe that no one could have done better. If they could, they would have done it.
Thank you so much for sharing, Luke, your story. Honestly, it was intense, and I felt like sometimes I would have a watery eyes a little bit, but I was like, I'm not gonna be like this vanilla girl and try to, even though it's okay to be vanilla girl. As you see, guys, a lot of people go through a lot of experiences, and this was like pretty hard experiences, but you definitely overcame it. And you're definitely doing very good for yourself, which is, we know here, we people. So we know he does very well, and I really wish you a lot of peace. And I just hope if you watch it, guys, you learn something for yourself. I hope Luke sharing his story is gonna open a lot of questions for you that you can also answer through this interview. Please let me know in comments if you have any questions to Luke. He might come back and answer some questions, and I'm sure I'm gonna see him again. So we might do at some point part 2 when he's answering the questions. Definitely leave all his links. Please go support his American dream. You know what website, even for this interview, and go to his Instagram and say, I came from art, we love you. Let's do this. Go to his Instagram comments or Instagram DMs and say, I came from art, we love you, and you're loved. Or give him some cool compliment, because he shared a lot, so he deserves compliments a lot. Don't forget to smash the like button so more people will watch this video. And I really appreciate you guys here. My website is here. Thank you so much. Well, I think we need a hug.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was so good.
We need a hug. There was a little therapy session. There was a little therapy session. Now we're gonna go film some TikToks, subscribe, and stay kind, and we see you in the next one. Bye.